it's Aaron here from Reedy Visuals, and in today's video we're talking all about filters and 5 reasons why you should be using them right now. Now, admittedly, when we were starting out with like photography and filmmaking a few years ago now, we kind of just ignored lens filters, and looking back on it, that was actually a pretty big mistake, as they would have been really helpful in multiple situations and possibly solved a few problems that we face. That's because lens filters are actually great for getting extra control over exposure and can actually help you improve your image quality by increasing contrast, making colors more vibrant, and reducing reflections. They also make it possible to film in situations that it would be otherwise impossible to film in without having your image completely overexposed. So to hopefully help you avoid some of the mistakes that we made in this video, I'm going to go through a few things that lens filters can be helpful for and what type of filter that you might need. Before we do that though, a huge shout out and thank you to Haida filters, who provided us with their variable ND filter and their black mist filter for this video. This isn't a paid or sponsored video, but Haida were nice enough to send us these filters for free. We've been using them now for a few months now, and they are awesome. They're really well priced as well. So if you're interested in getting some of their filters yourself, there will be links in the description box below. If you're in the market for some new filters, I highly recommend looking into Haida filters. So let's kick off with the first reason to use them, which is to protect the glass on your lens. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. You can stick one of these simple and inexpensive UV filters on your lens to protect the glass from scratches and damage. Now, a few minor scratches wouldn't probably even be that noticeable on images. However, if you are planning on upgrading your kit, they will affect the value of your lens quite a bit if you ever decide to sell one on. We always use them when we travel or shoot outdoors, as that's when we end up doing most of the damage. If you're like us, you probably don't bother with the lens cap when you're too busy, admiring the surroundings or working or whatever. And that's the best part about using UV filters, since you can shoot through them, you can slap them on and forget about it whilst your glass stays protected. Believe me, it's always better to scratch or break the lens filter rather than the glass on your lens itself. So make sure you stay protected. So reason number 2 is that lens filters give you more control over exposure. So ND filters, otherwise known as neutral density filters like this one, are a great way to give you extra control over your exposure beyond what you can do in camera. So they pretty much act as sunglasses for your lens, and they're pretty amazing in sunny conditions where you have less flexibility over the camera parameters, and so you often have to sacrifice the depth of field to get the exposure right. So here we are using the Haida variable ND filter to adjust the exposure without actually needing to change the aperture. ND filters come at different f-stops by which they reduce the exposure, so you can get either fixed or variable ND filters. Fixed come in set f-stop measurements, so they are generally cheaper, but you do end up needing to buy a few depending on what strength you might need. The variable ND filters are a bit more pricey, and the price of course depends on the filter size that your lens requires. Usually the bigger the filter thread, the more expensive the filter will be. If you're a video shooter, I strongly recommend variable filters, as it provides you so much more freedom than fixed ND filters. Variable ND filters pretty much magically darken as you twist the front ring, saving you a lot of time you would otherwise have to spend swapping out the filters as the conditions change. They're particularly amazing if you want to shoot at a nice fast aperture like say f2.8 and up, but in sunny and bright conditions without massively overexposing your image. I prefer using fixed ND filters for photography, as you can control the exposure using the shutter speed, unlike with shooting video. In photography, ND filters come in particularly handy when you want to create long exposures by increasing your exposure time, so you can take images like this one with silky smooth water or skies, and you won't need to resort to using the minimum apertures, which can lower your image quality. Reason number 3 is filters can add contrast and color. So sometimes you may feel like your photos looked really washed out in comparison to what you're actually seeing with your eyes, especially in like harsh lighting conditions or like kind of gray and cloudy conditions. This is where polarizing filters can come in. So these filters control which waves of light are actually entering your lens, providing a crispier and more vivid image. These are particularly useful for landscapes and cityscapes, as they reduce haze, but can also be used for other types of photography as well. So here are some examples of images with and without the polarizing filter, so that you can see the difference that they make in different situations. Reason number 4 is that filters can improve glares, flares, and reflections. So polarizing filters not only add contrast and produce better colors, but they can also be used to control and even completely remove glares, flares, and reflections. So you get a level of control that you can't achieve in other ways when shooting reflective subjects, for example, cars or landscapes with water, buildings, products, that kind of thing. So as you twist the ring on a polarizing filter, you will notice how the reflections in your image intensify and then reduce. So here's an example with no filter, with the filter set to intensify the reflection and to a point at which the reflection is minimized. As you can see from these images, you can use them to remove reflections from materials like glass, metal, from surfaces like water, etc., which could otherwise ruin a shot. Sometimes you can't always completely remove them, but you can see what a big difference it can make. They're also great fun to experiment with if you want to get creative as well with your reflections. So lastly, reason number 5 is you can use filters to add in-camera effects. So lens filters can not only be used to improve the quality of your photography, but also to create effects like starbursts, adding color gradients and soft focus. Portrait photographers will particularly like soft focus filters like this black mist filter we have here from Haida. They can be really effective at creating kind of like a dreamy atmosphere in your photos and video. These types of filters were often used in early cinema to smooth out the skin, for example, or add like a hazy kind of magical feel. They can be particularly useful when shooting outdoors as well to soften the effects of harsh lighting. You can see in these photo comparisons how the soft focus filter reduces the contrast, softens the skin, and reduces the appearance of imperfections, all while maintaining the eyes in focus. So those are my top 5 reasons why I use lens filters personally, but what about you guys? I'd love to know what filters you're using and why. Make sure you drop a comment down below and let us know. Now, there are a lot of great filters out there, from budget price options to more expensive. In my experience, you don't want to go for the cheapest of the cheap, but sometimes the more expensive options can feel like a little bit of a rip-off as well. So in my opinion, you definitely want to go somewhere like in the middle. That's why I really like these Haida filters. They are genuinely awesome to use. They're very reasonably priced as well, and they're really good quality as well. So I'd highly recommend checking out Haida filters. So once again, a big thank you to Haida for sending these filters to us and making this video possible. Go check them out using the links in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, then you can do me a big favor by hitting that like button, subscribing, and also following us on Facebook and Insta, places like that. And I guess I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much again. Peace.